accent, so sorry.
It's a good try.
So happy, I think it's Thursday. If you're like me, you kind of lost track of the days. But Lucas and I are really, really, really excited to hop on with you guys today. We are going to talk about just how to have a bigger impact in the world, especially with everything going on right now. I've been having discussions with some of my friends who we keep saying, man, I wish there was something more that we could do. Like, we personally aren't working the front lines. We know people that are, but we just feel helpless. We feel like there's nothing that we can do. So Lucas and I are going to chat a bit today about how we can make an impact in the world, whether it's right here in your day-to-day, currently in this situation, and moving forward as we continue to move through the next few weeks and even months, not knowing what that looks like. But I will say, if you're following us on social media, which we hope that you are, we are posting over the next 8 days, starting today, something that you can do every single day. It takes, 3 minutes, sometimes less, that you can do that can just sort of help boost your joy, boost your happiness, that you can make an impact in your life here at home. Here at home, but then also within your community. So be on the lookout for that. If you do it, please share. We would love for you guys to share this with other people so we can all participate in that. So that was a lot. Lucas,
love it. Good. And I just love how these Facebook Lives are just awesome and they're real. Like, sometimes we'll have our kids come in and interrupt us midway through, phones call. It's just real. And because we're real, and that's part of our value of what we're trying to do with Glow. So, but yeah, super pumped. I'm excited to talk about really the story of Glow and why we started. And Liz is going to throw some questions, and we'll unpack this together. It should be fun.
Yeah. So I'm going to interview Lucas today and just kind of dive deeper. And I like to ask some of the deeper, harder questions, things that some of you guys have probably been wondering too, but maybe you haven't shared it out loud. I have no issue asking those questions. Do I, Lucas?
Nope. We're good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, I'm the bad cop. Kind of like that role. So anyway, so Glow's been around, for a few months now, at least, almost a full year. And it's definitely gaining some momentum. But kind of just briefly, maybe in a couple sentences, tell us, what is Glow?
Yeah, cool. Look, our whole goal with Glow is pretty simple, is we want to help build technology that helps people have a bigger impact in the world. Like, it's really that simple. And we have this core belief that actually generosity, if we started a movement of radical generosity all around the world, it literally, we can impact the world in massive ways. And so that's really the core of it. And we've got a bunch of technology ideas, but we're going to start in the first place where we feel like there's the biggest need, and that is to fix charitable giving.
Yeah.
Like, this is an area, I don't know if you're like this, but when I read stories, and I think these are awesome stories, but when I read, like, Bill Gates gives $100 million to fight the coronavirus, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, and I think Bill Gates is a legend and an awesome example of a billionaire using his resources to change the world. But I can't help but think all the time, like, what about me? Like, I feel like that guy's making an impact. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's making a dent. But for me, who's just a normal, everyday, average person who works a job, has a limited amount of money to give, I'm like, how do I make a difference? Like, how do I really make a difference? Because the fact is, when I give to a charity today, when I give my $50, $25, $100, whatever, it doesn't feel like I'm making a big dent. It definitely doesn't feel like, I'm giving $100 million to really make a dent in an issue. But I'm like, look, technology can solve that. And so one of the things that you hear us talk a lot about is this idea of a giving circle. Like, because the fact is, there is a way that normal people, everyday people like us, could give away $100 million away. Like, there is a way. And it's simple. It's the way it works is, if you get a large enough group of people and you pool our resources together every month, and then together we vote to give it away. It's that simple. If we have 100,000 people giving $25 a month, that means we could give away $2.5 million every month. And that math goes up and down. It takes 3.4 million people giving an average of $25 each a month, and over a course of a year, we'll give away almost $1 billion a year. So the numbers aren't crazy, but we're just pretty pumped about this concept of giving circles. And we think, look, it's just an awesome way that everyday people like us can make an impact. And so
it's crazy to think that, just by giving $25 a month, that we can, as a group, give away $1 billion a year.
It's crazy.
I want to go back to what you said about unleashing radical generosity.
Yeah.
And just kind of the science behind generosity and the numbers. I would say statistically, people say that they believe they are generous people, whether it's their time, their resources, their money, whatever it is. But you and I both know, talking with nonprofits throughout the years, that the millennial generation, like my generation, although we are one of the most self-proclaimed generous generations, we are actually giving less. And you even talked about, just even with nonprofits, what is generosity, and why do you think we're giving less money as a generation?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So a couple parts. Let me answer. Look, I want to, number one, dispel a myth of generosity. And that is that the biggest myth is people think generosity is only about money. Actually, it's not. It's a part of generosity. Actually, generosity is a measure by which you live life or experience life, right? So if you've got a scale, you've got down on this end, you've got stingy, and then on the other end, you've got generous, right? And literally with everything, you could be stingy with your kindness or generous with your kindness.
Mm-hmm.
You could be stingy with your forgiveness or generous with your forgiveness. You could be stingy with finances or generous with finances. And the science on generosity is mind-blowing. It literally says that people who are generous will experience more joy in life, have stronger relationships, and literally they live longer. Right? So we don't have to freeze our brain stems when we die anymore. If you want to live longer, just be generous. Like, it literally, and when I think about generosity, I think it's very much intended that generosity actually is one of the ways you can experience being human in the most profound and powerful way. Even this week, I mean, we've been all over social media. The world is shutting down. It's chaos with this whole coronavirus deal. But these glimpses of generosity, we're sharing it everywhere, like everywhere. I had a really, really old, friend from long back. He just passed away a week ago. And all the pouring, like, people are remembering his generosity and how he impacted the world. It's like generosity, literally. If you want to experience what it means to be human, learn to be more generous. Don't be stingy, but be generous. And the byproduct, like I said, is joy, better relationships, and you live longer. It's good.
And it sounds too, like, just from your friend, which I'm sorry to hear that, but the more generous we are, not only do we reap those benefits of that, but we're leaving that legacy for so many other people as an example of, like, hey, this is a way to live your life from day to day, to be more generous with your words and your actions and all that stuff. So that's really cool. Tell me about an experience for you that you experienced the power of generosity in your own life.
Yeah. Oh, good, cool. So when I think it all changed for me. I was about 16, and it was the first time I'd actually ever was challenged to be generous in a real radical way. So at the time, I was working at my uncle's supermarket, and I'd been working since I was 14 and 9 months. And for all the time, I was saving my money to buy a new guitar and a guitar amp. That's all I wanted to do. And it was a beautiful guitar. Anyway, it worked a year and a half, saved up, bought the guitar, bought the amp, and I would just play it all day, every day. And then one day, there was a coworker who started learning to play the guitar, and we would chat and talk about it all the time. And I felt like I had this like feeling like I should give away my guitar and give it to this guy, which was insane. And I'm like, no way. Why would I do that? Like, I've worked a year and a half to save up for this thing, but I couldn't shake this feeling like I was meant to give it away, and it was meant to give it to this guy. Anyway, after like about 3 months, I finally, like, it was just really heavy on me, and I thought, well, okay, I'll do it. I'll give it away. And I remember turning up to work. So we turn up early and do the load in for the supermarket. And after we'd done the load in, I said, hey, man, come back to the car. I want to give you something. And we went back to the car, and I opened the trunk, or the boot, as we call it in Australia. Mm-hmm. And he saw my guitar and amp, and he looked at me, and I said, dude, I want you to have this. And he's like, no, I can't take that. That's your idol. That's your thing. I'm like, no, I really want you to have it. Like I just think, like, I could buy another one, but I want you to have this. Like, just have it as a gift. And he was just really, like, he didn't know what to do, number one. But he ended up, I wouldn't let him walk away without taking it. And so he took it away. And I remember driving back in my car from that whole experience, and I was just weeping in the car because, not because I gave up something I loved, but actually the joy that I experienced in that moment of giving away a gift that meant so much to me, to somebody else, it was the most freeing thing I'd ever experienced. And it changed my life. It really did, because I thought, there is a lot more power in giving than receiving, or being generous than being even the recipient of generosity. And I'll just say, like, since that day, I've been given many guitars. Like, there's a guitar on my shelf. Can I go that way? Yeah. And that guitar there, that black guitar, was given to me by a friend long ago who played in a famous band. And that guitar was the guitar that played the main lick in one of these really famous songs. And he gave it to me. And I'm like, look, just over the years, I've just realized, the more you're generous, it just comes back to you. It just comes back. And so that day really changed my life. And I thought, you know what? Like, if generosity feels this good, I just want to do it in every way, shape, or form that I can. And so
did you say, I think about, that was an awesome story. Like, you're giving away something really big that you worked really hard and long for.
Yeah.
That's like a big thing. But like, even something small as paying for someone's coffee behind you in line at the coffee shop, I can't help but wonder, is there a connection between generosity and sacrifice?
I think for sure. It's when you sacrifice, it's hard. Like, it was not easy. It took me, almost 3 months of like trying to talk myself out of giving away this massive gift. Right. And looking back, it wasn't, it cost me a few $1,000s, but I was, as a 16-year-old kid, that's a massive amount of money. Right. But yeah, I think there definitely is this, sacrifice and the reward, the joy that comes back. I think there's something in that. I don't understand it all. I just know that it works, and that I've experienced it over and over in my life. And I've received it back. There was a time when Jody and I were just married. We were living in New Jersey, and we were so poor. We had no money. I'd just come to America, and immigration had lost my work papers, so I suddenly couldn't work. And we were it was the middle of winter in New Jersey, freezing cold, and we didn't have money for food. And I remember this one day, we just heard a knock on the doorbell ring. We went downstairs, and just outside my door was a whole bunch of food. Like, someone had just dropped off food at our house. And it was awesome. Like, I'll never forget that, being the recipient of somebody else's generosity. To this day, we didn't even know who that was. But we had people like pay for our rents, and it was just awesome. Generosity makes you feel good.
It does. And I agree. I think the payoff of the sacrifice is worth it, no matter how big or small that it may feel at the time. But also, hearing about, people coming around you during that time, whether you knew them or not, they were part of your community.
Yeah.
And I know that part of Glow's vision is leveraging technology and community and storytelling in order to make a bigger impact in the world. So how does community and generosity play into all of what Glow is doing?
Yeah. I think community is powerful.
Mm-hmm. We're noticing that these days.
Big time, right? Like, yeah, but I just think about any movement in the world, like anything radical that's changed in the world. It happened because a community of people got fed up. They were tired of whatever the situation was, and they formed together and they made a difference. And community is powerful, particularly when they have a unified vision.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Look, it is exciting, and it's great for Bill Gates to give away $100 million to make an impact. But I just think, how much cooler is it if literally millions of us came together to have the same impact. It's not just one person, but literally millions of people heading towards the same direction. I think literally there is nothing that we can't overcome as humans, as a population, as global citizens. There's nothing in the world we can't overcome when we all come together around a common vision and a common dream. And I just think it's more fun. It's more fun to do it together. I mean, if you're going to change the world, you may as well do it with people and friends. And so at the core of Glow, it's always been, like you said, how to have impact with community storytelling, and this storytelling is really built on transparency. I think one of the biggest frustrations when it comes to charitable giving for us is we're just, in today's day and age, we're skeptical of everything. Like, we don't trust the news. We don't know which nonprofit we should give to because we don't know who's making a big impact. But we want our money to make an impact, but we didn't even know where to start.
So we just stopped giving.
So we just stopped giving because we're skeptical. It's not, back to your original question, like why do millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, why have we kind of why have we stopped giving?
Yeah.
And I think this is the biggest reason. We're skeptical and we don't know. We're looking for answers. We want to be generous. In fact, I really believe that this generation will go down in history as being the most generous in all of history. And the data tells us that we're about to inherit $59 trillion of wealth over the next 20 years. We're going to have to make a decision on what we do with that. And I think, the opportunity is for us to figure out how to be generous and how to really do this right. So that's another big part of Glow, is we want to just help people be efficient. We want to find the best nonprofits doing the best work in the world and support their work and then tell their stories.
Yeah. So just playing bad cop here, like the problem is that we don't know who to trust. We don't know if our money is actually making a difference. So we stop giving, or we stop caring about where we're giving. So how can we as millennials, like, me from the outside looking in, like, how do I know that I can trust Glow?
Yeah, so it's a really great question, right? And we are small, but here's our vision of what we actually do. So how do you find the best nonprofits doing the best work? It's not an easy job, because if you just look at their storytelling, anyone can just tell a good story and actually not do great work. So we've decided to partner with some really great organizations like the Global Center for Nonprofit Excellence, even GuideStar. There's a bunch of resources out there that will do a review and look at an organization's finances, their operations, look at their spending, and then it comes down to relationship as well. So particularly Glow, where we only support organizations that, number one, is operationally really efficient, right? So that means that the maximum amount of money is being used to get to the front lines for the work and the project that they're doing. It doesn't, of course, there's going to be, any great organization, any great nonprofit is going to have administration costs, right? So it really is, it's a fallacy to believe % of your donation is going to end up on the front line, because if you don't have the infrastructure, it's going to be very inefficient. That is not our goal. Again, we want impact. So we actually want operational layers in between. And so we get on we have conversations with the nonprofits we support and say, hey, what does your infrastructure look like? How does the deployment of that capital look? And what are the impacts of that on the front line? And then that's who we support. And then it follows up on the flip side. We tell them, look, if we support you and we give you money, we want all the stories. Like, we want storytelling. Prove to us that you're doing the things that you're doing by telling us stories along the way. And they could be as simple as, here's a photo and here's the story that goes along with that. Or we send out, our big dream is we'll send out YouTubers and to go capture stories, to go visit projects and actually show you authentic, what's real, what's going on. Not a highly produced content, but just the real stories on the ground.
Yeah. And just to kind of add on to that, like, anybody can go to a nonprofit's website and read the financials and like dig into all of that. But at Glow, what we're doing is we are taking that step out for everybody else. Like, we are the ones that are spending countless hours digging through financials and talking with them and asking them hard questions.
Yep.
And just so everyone knows, like, there has been times where we've talked with nonprofits that we thought would be a good fit for us to partner with, and we found out through those conversations that it wasn't the best fit at that time.
Yep.
So we truly are committed to finding the best organizations doing the best work so that we can then share. So I know, Lucas, like, yes, you're from Australia. So you've traveled, at least to one other country.
Yeah.
But I also know that you have been to many other places.
Yeah.
Can you share some of the most impactful stories and sort of what changed the trajectory as far as like wanting to get involved?
Yeah. So, I had the opportunity when I was 17. So if I bring you back to the very first story that changed everything for me, it was, I had the opportunity during a summer break while I was still in school, while I was in 11th grade, to go to Zambia over summer for 6 weeks. And went there with a team of other 17, 16, 18-year-olds. And we went to build a school. We hung out with kids and did like puppet shows and tied balloons. And it was amazing. But Zambia, I'll never forget when the plane landed and I look out the window and I see mud huts, like people living in mud huts. And then we got off the airplane, we're walking through, and it was my first time I'd ever experienced poverty. Like, I came from Australia where I had everything, I had a job, I had money. And it was on that trip that I learned and I realized that if you have food in the refrigerator, if you have a roof over your head and a bed to sleep in, then you're richer than 75% of the world. And I left that trip having seen what poverty was and how it affected. Like, I saw little children with worms, and they've got the giant bellies, that pop out like this. And in Australia, if you have worms, you take, some $3 medicine, and it's a disease that, or not a disease, it's a curable illness. And here are young kids didn't have shoes on, and because they didn't have shoes, they had worms, and because of that, they couldn't go to school. I saw young girls, like 10-year-old girls, walking 10 kilometers a day to go get water. And they would carry the water back on their head. And those young girls couldn't go to school because they were collecting water for their family. And the water wasn't even clean.
Yeah.
And when I left, I remember going back to the airport and we're on this bus and I'm looking out the window and I made a commitment to myself. I said, you know what? For the rest of my life, I want to make a difference. I don't think it's fair that just because somebody was born in another country, that the color of their skin is different than mine, that they should be treated or have any less of an opportunity to succeed in life than me. Because it's not my fault I was born in Australia. I just was. But I left with a responsibility saying, now that I have seen, I have to do something different. I have to live my life different. And so as of now, I've been to over 30 different countries, doing humanitarian work in some way, shape, or capacity. And I've got some awesome stories from living with the Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert, the tribe who click as a language. I have been in Zone 18 in Guatemala, one of the most dangerous drug-infested cartels areas in Guatemala, and I've played basketball with drug lords. And after building a brand new basketball and soccer gym for the kids in the community, and I've got lots of awesome stories. But what I've just seen over the years is, you can, like an ordinary average guy from Australia, I can make a difference in the world. And the same story is true for everyone else. And I keep learning it over and over. We all can make a difference in the world. Yeah. And if we actually did it together, the world would literally change. And that's what gets me excited. And that's what gets me pumped about Glow is, kind of one more thing I'll add there is, it's like, I think you've asked me before as well, like why, and is what people think, like, why should I care?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, right. I've heard stories from you about your travels. I have heard stories from roommates in college and youth that our church, like all these things of stories of people traveling overseas and seeing this stuff. And although I'm like, yeah, that sounds terrible, and I hate that, like, sure, I'd love to kind of maybe make an impact, but the reality is, like, I've not experienced that. So why should I care so much about that as opposed to maybe what's happening, like what's right in front of me in my day to day? Why? Like, why should I?
And and here's the deal. Like, in today's day and age, like, we live in a global world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, everything changed when I was educated. Like, when I began to see the reality of the world. Like, here's the truth, right? No matter where I am in the world, we're all human. Like, we all have feelings. We all have families. If you cut our arm, we are all going to bleed the same color blood. Like this essence of humanity is all around the world, and we're connected by our humanity. And just because you have not been and visited, in a developing nation, or a nation that maybe is in a lot more poverty than your own, the fact is, like, there kind of is no excuse in today's day and age to not be educated about the issues. Put on Vice News. If you want to go learn about refugees in Syria, go watch Vice News, and they go walking into refugee camps, and they give you the real stories of people on the ground. And I just say this, like, why should we care as Americans, as Australians, as Westerners? Because you can make even more of a difference. That's why. Like, why should you care? Because we do have privilege, because we do have the opportunity to make an even bigger impact. So we should. It's almost like, I remember, just because you're ignorant of the speed limit, do you think, like, if a cop pulls you over, the cop's not going to go, oh, like, if you say, oh, I just didn't know, the cop's not going to care. You're still going to get arrested. Yeah. One more story on this one. Like, when I was in Mumbai in India on a trip, and I think I've shared this story before, but it really was powerful. We went through this district, and I'm looking out the window, and it just looked like, if you've ever been to Mumbai, there are just millions and millions and millions of people stacked on top of each other. It is a massive, massive sprawling city, metropolis, whatever you want to call it. And it just looked like everything else. And I remember our guide said to us, hey, did you notice anything different about this area? And all of us on the bus were like, nah, it just looked like markets like the rest of India. And he said to us, okay, we're going to go back through it again. He said, actually, what we just went through was the red light district. He said that in this area, there are like thousands and thousands of people being trafficked right now underneath our noses. He said, we're going to go drive through again. This time I want you to look for every woman or young boy if they've got makeup on their faces. If they've got like lipstick on and makeup, then they're prostitutes, or they're being sold in some way, shape, or form. But most of these people are in bonded slavery. Like, it's not their own choice. And so we drove through it again. And I tell you, my heart just sank, because as we drove through again, I just see literally hundreds, if not thousands of people behind doors that you'd see a little cracked door, and suddenly you'd see 7 people behind a door, young children, all with makeup on, all being sold. And the thing is this, I went through that street and I didn't notice it because I wasn't educated. I didn't know any difference. But when I went through the second time and suddenly I had a little bit more information, I was then faced with something. What am I going to do about it? Now that I know, now there's a responsibility that I've got to do something with it. I could just turn around and never let that experience change me, but I didn't. I said, wow, this has changed my life. What has changed my life? I just think, get educated about the issues, because when you're educated about it, you can actually do something about it. Don't be afraid of learning about some of the the realities of the world, because by knowledge, you can actually have a bigger impact.
Yeah, and I like what you said, that we do have privilege here. We have the resources and the means to change people's lives across the world for the better.
Yep.
Not that we want their lives to look like ours, not that we think we're superior, but we do have the means, even if it's just $25 a month.
Yeah. And it doesn't, when you give like $25 to an organization today, it doesn't feel like you're making impact.
Right.
You kind of like give the money and you get your tax deduction. Maybe you'll get an email from the organization that says, hey, thanks for your donation. But that's it. You don't is it really making a difference? Again, we come back down to the power of a giving circle. Like if we all do that and we can deploy millions of dollars to a project, then it feels like we're having a much bigger impact. So I shared a little bit of a story when I was in Guatemala in this area called Zone 18, which is, the drug problem in this area is so bad. They literally have gates, these massive gates around the Zone 18, so that when the drug problem gets really bad and the violence gets bad, the government literally locks those gates and keeps people inside, so they have to figure it out themselves. And I was there working with this. It was a children's program, a program giving kids education, feeding them, because basically, as a kid, if they don't go to school, then they go into drugs and they're dead by the time they're 19 years old. Like I've never seen or experienced a place that devalued human life like this area. It was just the feeling was hopeless, and it felt like if you talk to kids, they had no other choice but to go into the drug business to provide for their families, and they end up dead. But I remember walking through the streets, and I said to the guy who ran the program, I'm like, it doesn't feel dangerous. We're walking around, it doesn't feel dangerous. He said, oh, that's because you're with me. And he said, because, as an organization, we're helping, like a lot of the kids who come, these drug cartels will send their kids there because it's the only way that these kids can kind of escape the reality of life. And I'll never forget, we were walking through the street about to do a home visit. We were about to go, there was a mother who was dying, and so we wanted to go meet with her. And on the way, we hear these two gun pops, pop, pop. And it was clearly gunshots, and it wasn't that far away from us. And we're walking through these little tiny, tiny little roads. About 30 seconds later, these two girls come running by us, and they're covered in blood, like completely covered in blood. After I just had a conversation with the guy about how we feel so safe on these streets and everything, covered with blood, they run by. And the guy who runs the program turns to me and says, we need to get out of here. And as we turned around to get by, then these two young 16-year-old kids ran by us with machine guns and ran off, and we quickly hightailed it back to the location. And and that's that for me. It was a reminder, like, this is the reality that a lot of people live with. Like, that was so far removed from my normal reality. In fact, I was walking the streets thinking we're safe, and then suddenly there's gunshots and there's somebody just got murdered, like just right down there. And I just think, look, we in the Western world, we have our life is fairly safe. We are comfortable. We have this, and we don't really understand what life is like for a lot of people in other countries, in different areas around the world, who are in war zones, who are living as refugees. We don't understand their pain. I've been fortunate enough to actually maybe experience little glimpses of it and have let that change me. But I say, for the rest of us, if you can't travel and you can't get there, look, just remember, when you read these stories, these are human stories. These are real people with real families, with real feelings, and they're enduring stuff, and we can make a difference. So if you can make a difference, why not?
Exactly. Well, and I love, like, you have stories from so many places. You've been to, over 30 different countries. And I think with Glow, another thing that sets us apart is that we do hit so many different types of issues and causes around the world. So, like, someone like me, who I care deeply about, a certain variety of causes, I don't feel like my $25 a month has to go to this one, or like I have to choose. I don't have to pick and choose. So explain, how do we choose at Glow? How do we pick what causes that we're focusing on each month?
Yeah, so we have so basically there's a group called the United Nations, and they have all come together. A bunch of nations have said, hey, look, there are these sustainable development goals, these goals that we as citizens of the world, these are the big issues that we want to help change and fix. And so what we did at Glow is we're like, okay, well, let's take those issues and kind of sum it down into like 10 areas that we think are important. And so they're like clean water, anti-slavery, education, gender equality, the environment, health. So we have a list of 10 things, disaster relief. And so what we do is each month, we just pick one of those categories. And we say, hey, we're going to focus that month. We're going to post educational pieces and help teach you about the issue so you can learn about it. And then we're going to find an organization who's doing the best work in that area. And then our giving circle that month, we're going to pull that money, and then we're going to give all that money to an organization that we pre-vetted. As you know, our giving circle right now is pretty small. So as we get bigger and bigger as a giving circle, and as we build the app and release that in the world, the way we give will be way more fun and sophisticated, and we'll be able to vote together, and it'll be really fun. But you know, right now, it's a pretty simple process. We pick one issue each month, we talk about it, and then we give our money away to an organization in that area.
Yeah. So what are we doing this month?
Yeah. So this month we shifted because of the whole coronavirus outbreak. We had been focusing on gender equality in education for the last couple of months, but we decided, look, it's such a moment in time. We have some resources. We have about $1,000 somewhere around there by the end of this month. Let's give that somewhere to help make a difference for people battling coronavirus in the front lines. So we found Project Hope. They do amazing work around the world. They are front lines delivering, you know, masks and food and water and medicine to people on the front lines. And so we thought, look, let's shift gears because we can, because of this felt need, and let's support their work.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because this is something that's affecting the entire world. The whole world is at war with this, and we can all relate. And we're reading stories about how so many people on the front lines don't have the necessary tools or resources to do their jobs effectively and efficiently. Yep. And so I'm excited for us to be able to be a part, to be even just a small part in this. So we are just inviting all of you guys that if you're wondering, how can I make an impact? How do I know if I give $25 a month or $50 this month that it's actually going to make an impact and that the front lines are going to be receiving it? We promise to follow up with stories with you guys to share what your impact is doing in the world every month. So
yeah, and it's pretty easy. Look, so how to make a bigger impact in the world. We are obviously, we're passionate about the Giving Circle. If you go to our website, jointheglow.com, and just hit join the Giving Circle. Okay, it's going to pop up. It'll have a little form there, and it'll say, hey, how much can you give each month? Literally, you can give as little as $3 a month. Mm-hmm. We encourage you, give as much as you can. But once you give your month, you enter your credit card, or you can do an Apple Pay, you can do whatever. And then if you scroll down the page, you'll see that we have how many donors we have right now and how much we're giving away. Look, if our goal this month, if we can get that to give away around $1,000 a month, that'll be awesome. Mm-hmm. The average donation amount right now, I believe, is around $30.
$30. Okay.
Right. So it's like cool. And we're giving away, I think, $415 each month right now. But what can we do? And we invite you to be a part of it. What can you do to participate in this? Can you give up a coffee a week or a day, or can you give up a meal a day and put $25 in or $50 in? It doesn't take much, and I think our goal is if we can get to $1,000 a month, and we say this, then invite your friends. Mm-hmm. Then share it with your friends and get them to be a part of the Giving Circle. The more people that's a part of it, the more fun.
Yeah, so it's such a small sacrifice for you guys to even see a small sacrifice and then a greater impact. You're going to be able to get. You guys will be able to track. So we're just asking you guys, why not try it? Go ahead and donate this month. Join the Giving Circle. Follow along. If you realize, like, hey, this isn't something that I want to participate in anymore, you can always change the amount that you're giving. You can cancel it. Just give it a try. That's all we're asking. So you can experience the power of generosity in the world, especially at a time that everyone needs it.
And you don't have to pick one organization. Like you mentioned earlier, like I want to change the whole world. I want to do in the environment. I want to change clean water. I want to dig wells. I want to give kids education. I want to do all of that. But if you've got a limited amount of money, like if you're like me, then I don't want to have to just pick one organization. I actually want to do it all. And that's another great benefit of the Giving Circle. Each month, not only can we give away more money than we ever could by ourselves, but we can do it in all the areas that we're passionate about. And if you're not yet passionate about it, like follow along with the educational pieces and we'll teach you. And I guarantee every month you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is a big issue in the world. Oh my gosh, I do want to get involved in this. And it's exciting. So
it is exciting. Well, Lucas, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close out?
Join us. Join the Glow. Hashtag join the Glow. Look, and one last thing. Look, if you've in this season, we're all at home. We're quarantining. When it comes to generosity, if you've got stories of generosity, if you come across something online and a story that inspires you, or there's whatever, then if you can go to our Facebook group, which is Join the Glow, if you just go there and just share that story, share it with our community, and then we'll be able to also share that to the world. Because look, I think our society, humanity right now, just needs stories of generosity. It needs you and I just to be generous in our everyday life. And we hope, like Liz said very early on in the opener, if you do some of these activities we're going to share with you each day, like I guarantee you're going to feel more joy. You're going to make an impact, and hopefully it'll start this movement, this trickle effect, that you do it, your neighbors do it, everyone does it, and eventually we all.
So is it safe to say in spreading the virus, we're going to spread joy?
Yes. It's contagious. Joy is contagious.
It is. It is.
And it feels good. Like, why not? That's awesome. So go do these exercises. They're going to take you less than, it's 2 minutes a day. And really, it's going to make an impact. And then after you do it, if you want to, share it with your friends and community, get them to do it. Share the stories. Inspire others to do good, particularly during this season.
Yes, spread the glow, not the virus.
If you have stayed this long through this chat, that's spread the glow, not the virus. Good tag. If you stayed all the way through this chat, you're a legend. And thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
I will say this. If they stayed all the way through and they joined the Giving Circle, message me and I will send them something.
Okay, cool. That's total legend status. You've stayed all the way through and you joined the Giving Circle. Absolute legend. Yes.
I will send you a prize.
Okay, good.
That'll be worth it.
Oh, wow, cool. Can you tell us the prizes, or is it a secret?
It's a secret. They'll get to choose.
Okay, I'll get to choose. Cool. Awesome. All right, well, you heard it, everyone. Go get your prize. Liz is going to give you a prize if you join and you've listened all the way through. So take it easy. Stay safe. See you, friends.
See you guys.